Well, back home now, and Shadow Home Affairs Minister Andrew Hastie has threatened to quit the opposition frontbench if the Liberal Party pursues net zero by 2050. Joining us live on this Tuesday morning is the Shadow Education Minister Jonathon Duniam. Jonathan, good to see you this morning. How do you feel about that Andrew Hastie potentially moving on or just quitting if the Libs pursue net zero?
Well, knowing Andrew as well as I do, I know him to be a man of integrity and one who is consistent about his views. This is exactly the sort of thing he was talking about immediately after the election with regard to net zero. So I don't think anyone should be surprised about him continuing to say that. I think, as others will probably point out through the course of the day, we'll go through our processes internally, and I know Andrew will very much make his views known loudly and very, very strongly. And there's nothing wrong with that. While there's a lot of hyperventilation around what this could or might mean for the coalition, it is a strength of our party to have this range of views expressed sometimes publicly, and I think people ought to see that we do go through a robust process when it comes to getting to an end policy outcome, and this is just another part of that.
Would you follow him?
Well, I've said all along that net zero at any cost is bad policy, and that seems to be what this government is pursuing. Yesterday we had this climate risk report put out, and the timing, I have to say, is passing strange, given we're about to receive these new targets for 2035, and I think, as others might have pointed out already, it seems to me that they're looking for cover for targets which will, as in their words, be ambitious. I think will be economically damaging for our country. What they won't give us is how much it's going to cost to Australian households and businesses to meet those targets under their plan. And while they'll tell us how much it costs not to act, they won't tell Australians how much it costs to act. So I think we need to go through that conversation. But if anything I say has an impact on the outcome, we should not adopt exactly what Labor put forward here, because that would be economically damaging, as it has been for the last 3 years, and we have to put forward our view coherently.
If the Liberals were to adopt net zero by 2050, though, if that's Susan Lee's wish, would you move to the backbench? Would you follow Andrew Hastie and quit?
Well, look, if we just said net zero at any cost by 2050, I think you'd find there'd be a mass exodus. The reality is that most of the members of our frontbench, and indeed most of the members of our party room, are interested in making sure that whatever we do, if it is to retain a net zero by 2050, doesn't come at whatever the cost might be, unlimited cost, which sees high power prices, high cost of doing business, offshoring of jobs and a faltering economy.
So, I mean, so you would? You'd follow Andrew, do the same?
Well, our party room, I'm pretty certain, based on the conversations I've had, including with our own leader, Susan Lee, is that adopting net zero at any cost is bad policy. And that is something that I don't think many people in our party room, if anyone, is going to countenance.
So it's not going to...
People might want to see...
That's your view, that the Liberal Party won't pursue net zero by 2050 anyway, so Andrew's safe in his role.
Look, net zero at any cost is something that only stupid people would pursue, frankly. We have to get balance in this debate. We can say we want to save the planet by reducing emissions, great, but at what cost? Do we want to shut down the economy? And that is what Labor is proposing to do here. They won't tell us what it'll cost. They won't tell us what impact it'll have on second and third rounds. The analysis they released yesterday hasn't even been properly finally reviewed, so it's all very speculative and nebulous. And we will base these targets that Chris Bowen and Anthony Albanese will table later in the week, or next week, whenever it might be, on these sort of rubbery projections out 60 plus years. That is not good policy making, and the people that pay the bill are your viewers and the businesses they work for.
Well, I mean, Matt Canavan, he was saying it was completely over-egged. I mean, this report, which seemed to suggest that our world is going to be over unless we go harder on emissions targets, even though the world's biggest emitters, such as China and India, aren't doing much to reverse course. So how do you reconcile that with your thoughts about emissions reduction?
But they're not inconsistent at all. Net zero at any cost in Australia means going it alone. Net zero, taking into account the fact that we need to have a functioning economy, is a very different proposition to the idea that we just sort of forget about what China and America and others might be doing. We need to protect those emitting industries. The safeguard mechanism has had a disastrous impact on some of these big manufacturers in our country and parts of the resources sector, and we can't ignore that. They're the sorts of things we need to be dealing with here. And again, this debate, Labor want to have a debate just about net zero, as if it has no impact on the rest of the economy. I refuse to allow them to do that. I think it's important for Australians to understand what pursuing net zero under Chris Bowen and Anthony Albanese's plan means for them when it comes to paying their power bills, getting food on the shelves of supermarkets and keeping businesses open.
Okay.
They need to have the debate in whole, not in isolation.
Jonathan, I've got to go, but good to see you this morning. Thank you.